In the long peace that followed the War of 12 Suns, no one in the galaxy remembered what true fear felt like. The great empires had disarmed, their fleets turned to exploration, their soldiers to poets and scholars. The concord of civilized worlds ruled over 2,000 species, bound together by treaties and comfort. Conflict had become something studied in academies, not lived. But when the first black ships from Earth appeared at the edge of the Orion Arm, scarred, silent, and moving with the patience of predators, the galaxy began to remember. They had forgotten what the Deathworlders could do. The Concord had thought the humans were extinct. 2 centuries earlier, after the Siege of Sol, the Council had blockaded their dying planet, declaring Earth quarantined for the safety of the galaxy. Their world had been classified a Category Omega, a death world beyond rehabilitation. Too volatile, too savage, too hopeless. "Let it burn," one senator had said. "Let the wild things consume themselves." And so they left Earth alone to rot, expecting its people to vanish into myth. But the Deathworlders hadn't died. They had endured. They had dug into their poisoned soil, built cities from rust and bones, turned radiation into power and storms into energy. When the rest of the galaxy had grown soft in peace, humanity had been tempered in hell. Now, as the black ships moved through the void, the Council broadcast warnings to every inhabited world. Do not engage. Do not provoke. Maintain distance. But panic had already begun. Traders whispered that they'd seen human war forms, machines that walked like giants through vacuum. Colonists spoke of entire pirate fleets going dark after raiding Deathworlder convoys. No signals, no survivors. The phrase spread like a curse. The stars fall silent when the Deathworlders take the field. The first official encounter happened near the colony moon of Halroon, a mining outpost orbiting a dead gas giant. The Halroon Defense Fleet, a ceremonial force with no combat experience, detected a formation of unknown ships approaching at sublight. Admiral Surtha, an Arvanian known for his arrogance, ordered them to hold formation. "They're scavengers," he said. "Primitive survivors. We'll send them back to whatever hole they crawled out of." His crew obeyed, though their instincts screamed otherwise. The incoming ships bore no transponders, no colors, no diplomatic codes. Only silence and the faint hum of power that made every sensor shiver. When the human ships arrived, they didn't fire first. They simply stopped a few kilometers away, forming a precise line across the stars. Their hulls were black and jagged like armor built from night itself. No lights, no insignia. Just the faint glow of molten seams where their engines burned too hot to hide. Admiral Surtha hailed them, his voice calm but tight. "This is the Halroon Defense Fleet. Identify yourselves and state your purpose." A voice came back through static, rough and human. "This is Commander Elias Ward of the Terran Vanguard. We're here for our people." Surtha frowned. "There are no humans on Halroon. The Council forbade your kind from traveling." Ward's tone was calm, almost weary. "Then the Council's lied to you. We tracked a distress beacon. A mining crew was taken from the frontier 2 weeks ago. We want them back." Surtha's mandibles flexed in irritation. "This sector is conquered territory. You have no jurisdiction here." There was a pause. Then Ward replied, "Then you have no idea what you're standing in the way of." Surtha ordered his fleet to advance. The humans didn't move. He ordered them to lock weapons. Still nothing. His pride flared. "Fire a warning shot." The instant the plasma bolts left the barrels, the stars went black. Every system aboard the Halroon ships shut down at once. Communications, targeting, propulsion. The plasma bolts vanished mid-flight. Their energy bled into nothingness. Surtha shouted for status reports, but his crew only stared at the dark screens. Through the viewport they saw the human fleet ignite, not with light, but with shadow. Their engines flared deep crimson, and then they moved. Not like ships, but like predators lunging. What followed was not a battle. It was dissection. The Terran ships tore through the Halroon fleet with silent precision, weapons that didn't fire so much as erase matter from existence. Whole cruisers vanished, their hulls turned to dust, their crews never even screaming. Within 7 minutes, The proud Halrun defense fleet was gone. The last transmission, picked up by nearby civilian stations, was a whisper from Admiral Surtha himself. "They don't fight like anything I've ever seen. They don't miss. They don't hesitate. Gods help us. They're human." After Halrun, the Concord could no longer deny it. Humanity was back. And this time, they weren't asking for permission. The Council convened emergency meetings, debating whether to declare open war or attempt contact. Some argued for diplomacy. If they've survived this long, perhaps they've changed. Others demanded extermination before the contagion of violence spread. But while they argued, human fleets were already moving, not to conquer, but to liberate. Commander Ward's forces began systematically attacking. Council outposts that held genetic containment camps, hidden facilities where the Concord had been experimenting on captured human survivors from the old wars. The Deathworlders didn't broadcast warnings or surrender terms. They struck, freed the prisoners, and left the rest in ruins. Every world they touched went dark for days, and when it came back online, only the slaves were alive. At first, the galaxy thought it was revenge. But then came the transmissions. Every time a facility was liberated, the Deathworlders broadcast a message on every channel. "We are not your monsters. We are what your peace created. Every cruelty you buried, we carried. Every law you used to silence us, we survived. You wanted the wild kept in the dark. Now the dark has learned to speak." On the frontier planet of Real, the Council sent an envoy to negotiate, a delicate, silver-skinned diplomat named Kareth. He arrived with gifts of gold and data, expecting savages. Instead, he found humans wearing armor that hummed with living nanotech, cities of steel growing beneath storm clouds, and children playing in gravity 3 times higher than his own species could endure. The humans greeted him politely, offered water, even food. Their manners were disciplined, almost soldierly, and when he met Commander Ward in person, Kareth realized something chilling. These weren't barbarians. They were soldiers who had turned survival into a religion. "You speak of peace," Ward said as they walked through the windswept plains of Real. "But your peace was built on our bones. You called Earth unfit for life. You abandoned us. And now you ask us to pretend nothing happened?" Kareth tried to hold his composure. "The galaxy has moved past violence, Commander. We can find harmony again. We can—" Ward stopped him with a quiet look. "Harmony?" He pointed to the horizon, where black thunderheads churned like living beasts. "That's harmony. Chaos and creation. Destruction and renewal. That's what Earth taught us. Your kind mistook stillness for peace, but peace without strength is just waiting to be conquered." Kareth had no answer. The humans escorted him safely back to his ship, unharmed. But before he left orbit, his sensors detected something vast beneath the planet's surface. A fleet under construction. Thousands of ships. An armada unlike anything the Concord had ever seen. Humanity wasn't just returning. They were preparing for something. Within months, half the Outer Rim declared neutrality, unwilling to fight a species that could turn fleets to ash. Some even defected, offering resources in exchange for protection. The Concord called it treason. The defectors called it survival, but not everyone welcomed humanity's rise. The Kaith Dominion, a proud warrior race that had once prided itself on its military power, refused to bow. Their supreme warlord Krasan declared, "If the Deathworlders wish to reclaim the stars, let them prove they deserve them." He sent 50 of his finest warships to intercept a Terran convoy near the Sarin Rift. It was supposed to be a show of dominance, a quick, glorious victory. Instead, the Kaith fleet vanished. No distress calls, no debris. Just silence. When the search parties arrived, they found the wreckage drifting through the rift, torn apart by forces that defied physics. The ships looked like they'd been crushed by invisible hands. Their cores were melted from the inside, and carved into the hull of the flagship, in deep, deliberate letters, were 2 words: "Never again." That message spread faster than any official declaration. The galaxy had seen fleets burn before, but this was something else. It wasn't war, it was judgment. And still, No one truly understood what humanity wanted. Then, one night, every broadcast network in the Concorde flickered. The screens went dark, replaced by the image of a human face. Elias Ward himself, eyes hard as stone. His voice carried across light years, cold and clear. You silenced our world and called it peace. You erased our names and called it safety. We are done hiding. The Deathworlders have returned, and we remember everything. He leaned closer, the faint hum of engines behind him. The stars fell silent when we took the field once before. Pray they stay that way. And then the transmission ended. Across the galaxy, hearts froze. The council scrambled, empires trembled, and for the first time in centuries, the night sky felt dangerous again. The Deathworlders were back, and this time, the stars themselves seemed to hold their breath. The alien generals had expected the humans to fall back after the first assault. That was the way of civilized species. Preserve, retreat, regroup. But the Deathworlders had a different rhythm. When the night fell on Meridian's burning plains, the human forces didn't sleep. They moved. Like shadows crawling over the land, they crossed the blackened ridges with barely a whisper. Drones that were supposed to track them found only heat ghosts, false readings, because the humans had learned to mask themselves in the world's own fire. Major Rhea Solis led the ghost company through the ruins of the captured city of Varkan, her face smeared with soot, her pulse steady as the rest of her team waited for her hand signal. Thermal sweep 3 o'clock. Their sentries are blind beyond the ridge, whispered one of the scouts. Rhea only nodded. They slipped through rubble and bone, the moonlight turning their visors pale silver. You know they're still watching, murmured Sergeant Brand, keeping his rifle low. Let them, Rhea replied. They'll learn what silence means tonight. Hours later, when the dawn rose red over the plains, the city of Varkan erupted into flame again. Alien commanders in orbit screamed for an explanation. There had been no human siege engines left, no visible movement. Yet somehow, munitions depots detonated in perfect sequence, shattering the alien garrison's power grid, communications, and command center all at once. Rhea's team had already exfiltrated, leaving only a burned human flag etched into the sand with a combat knife, a skull surrounded by stars. It was not a symbol of defiance. It was a warning. From the bridge of the alien dreadnought Valthros, Supreme Marshal Kelroon watched the live feed with disbelief. Impossible, he muttered. His adjutant, trembling, adjusted the holographic map. Marshal, the humans, they fought without ships in orbit. How could they achieve such precision? Kelroon's voice broke into a rasp. They don't need precision. They need opportunity. They turn chaos into a weapon. He had seen the first reports from other sectors. The humans were fighting across half a dozen worlds now, and every report followed the same pattern. No matter how many were killed, more arrived. They learned. They adapted. They improvised. Within days, their engineers could turn scrap metal into artillery. Their medics could keep soldiers alive from wounds that should have been terminal. And worst of all, their morale never broke. When alien species faced annihilation, they surrendered. When humans faced it, they evolved. In orbit above Meridian, the human carrier Vigilant Dawn was a patchwork of scars and emergency welds. Half its decks were sealed off, but it still served as the command hub for the Joint Terran Expeditionary Force. General Rourke stood over the tactical display, flanked by Captain Elise Tan and an alien liaison officer, a Karan named Thalir. Thalir's crystalline features flickered with unease. You are pushing your soldiers beyond reason, he said. Your species cannot sustain such attrition. Rourke didn't even glance up. You think this is attrition? He stabbed a finger at the holomap where human units were converging. This is tempo. You break ours, you win. But if we break yours, you die standing still. Thalir's translucent eyes dimmed. And if your strategy fails? Rourke gave a grim smile. Then we make sure failure costs more than victory ever could. Down on the surface, the war turned personal. The alien coalition had sent in their elite, the Scarveth Legion, bioengineered shock troops with carapaces harder than steel. They landed outside the ruins of Meridian's capital, roaring in their native war chant, certain of victory. But when they reached the first line of human defense, they found trenches filled with silence. No gunfire, no movement, only small devices blinking faintly in the dust. The Legion commander raised a claw, scanning the strange shapes. Before he could give the order to advance, one of the devices blinked red. Then a second. Then 100. The sky cracked open as buried charges ignited in a chain reaction that tore the earth apart. When the dust settled, human soldiers emerged from the cratered flanks, firing into the disoriented enemy. They didn't fight cleanly. They fought to end it. In the aftermath, human medics crossed no man's land to drag the wounded, enemy and ally alike, to safety. One Scarveth survivor, his exoskeleton shattered, stared up at the medic treating him. "Why? Save me?" he rasped through broken mandibles. The medic, a young woman whose fatigues were scorched and bloody, only said, "Because that's what we do." The alien blinked in confusion. "You kill us, and then you save us?" She didn't answer. She just tightened the tourniquet and moved to the next casualty. That moment spread through the alien ranks like wildfire. They couldn't understand it. These Deathworlders who fought like devils but healed like saints. By the second month, the war had turned into something the Galactic Council could no longer ignore. Broadcasts poured in from across the frontier. Images of entire worlds where humans had turned defeat into defiance. Alien commanders began requesting ceasefires, negotiations, truces, anything to slow the relentless tide. But humanity's response was chillingly uniform. "We didn't start this war." Every alien fleet that approached Earth's borders learned the same lesson. The stars themselves seemed to grow quiet when the humans mobilized. They did not boast. They did not taunt. They prepared. On the 26th day of the Meridian campaign, Rhea Solis and her team were ordered to retake the orbital elevator tower. It was the last operational structure capable of sending supplies between the surface and orbit. The alien defenders had entrenched themselves with automated turrets and air mines. The assault was suicide. Rhea didn't hesitate. "We're not leaving this rock half-finished," she told her unit. They went in under the cover of an electromagnetic storm, climbing the skeletal remains of the tower while lightning scorched the sky around them. Halfway up, Brand was hit. The bolt took his arm clean off, but he didn't stop. He strapped the stump, kept climbing, grinning through the pain. When they finally reached the control deck, Rhea overrode the alien lock systems and broadcast a signal to orbit. "Tower secured. Send the packages." Seconds later, the night bloomed with streaks of light as human dropships descended. Reinforcements, supplies, and hope. The tower held. Meridian was theirs. News of Meridian's fall broke the morale of the coalition. The alien fleets began to withdraw from human sectors, regrouping for defense. The war was far from over, but something fundamental had changed. The humans were no longer the hunted. They were advancing. Rourke stood before a holomap showing the new front lines, arms folded, voice quiet. "They called us savages," he said to no one in particular. "But the thing about savages, they survive." Far across the galaxy, the council chambers were silent. Dozens of species sat in unease, watching the reports come in. Worlds that had mocked Earth as primitive were now whispering of human valor and ferocity. Ambassador Thalir stood before the assembly, his crystalline body fractured but standing tall. "You wanted them contained," he said coldly. "You feared their nature. Now you fear their mercy." A murmur rippled through the chamber. "What happens when the Deathworlders decide not to stop?" one delegate asked. Thalir didn't answer. He didn't have to. The humans had proven something undeniable. The galaxy's rules of war, of peace, of diplomacy. None of it applied anymore. On Meridian, as the sun rose over the scorched horizon, Rhea sat beside a smoking crater and pulled off her helmet. Her hair was caked with ash. Her eyes reflected the firelight. Around her, her team scavenged for survivors, shared rations, and built makeshift graves. The wind carried the faint hum of a broken radio playing an old Earth song. She closed her eyes and whispered, "We're still here." Above her, in the vast sky where alien fleets once ruled, the first human patrol ships cut through the clouds like silent hunters. The stars had gone quiet. But humanity's fire had only grown louder. And somewhere, deep in the heart of the void, the galaxy listened and trembled. By the time the war reached its third month, the galaxy had stopped calling it a containment campaign. It was a survival struggle, and the ones everyone feared most were winning it. On the burning world of Meridian, the last alien resistance fell within days, and humanity's flag, a rough patch of tattered cloth sewn from scavenged uniforms, was planted on the scorched plains. But even as the soldiers of Earth secured victory there, their eyes were already fixed on the stars. The alien coalition wasn't done. Reinforcements were coming, fleets larger than any ever assembled in known history. Thousands of ships, millions of troops, enough firepower to crack planets. The Galactic Council, terrified of humanity's rise, had reclassified Earth as a Tier 0 threat species. Every civilized world was told to prepare for the Deathworlders' annihilation. Yet what none of them understood, what no one ever could, was that humanity didn't fear annihilation. They'd already lived it 1,000 times on their own planet. General Rourke watched the star maps aboard the Vigilant Dawn, lines of red and blue dots flickering across the tactical display like veins of fire. "They're massing at the outer ring," reported Elise Tan. "The Coalition calls it Operation Cleansing Sky. They're deploying orbital siege weapons capable of glassing continents." Rourke nodded grimly. "Then we'll make sure the sky burns before they reach us." He turned to the communications officer. "Patch me through to all command units." The voice that filled the intercom was low, gravelly, and steady as a heartbeat. "This is Rourke. They think we're cornered. They think they can erase us. They don't understand what it means to corner humanity. When they come, let them. We'll show them why even the stars went silent." Down on the surface, Rhea Solis and her ghost company were regrouping near the ruins of Meridian's capital. The city was nothing but skeleton towers and molten glass, yet within its ashes the humans built life again. Field hospitals sprouted from wrecked ships. Makeshift forges turned scrap into weapons. And at night, fires burned across the ruins, not of destruction, but of warmth. Soldiers laughed, sang, and shared stories around metal drums, their faces illuminated by flickering orange light. "You ever think we're crazy?" Sergeant Brand asked, chewing on a piece of stale ration bread. Rhea smirked. "Every day. But being crazy's what got us this far." He nodded toward the horizon where the wrecks of alien machines dotted the landscape. "Think they'll come back?" Rhea's smile faded. "Oh, they'll come, and when they do, we'll be waiting." Waiting didn't mean sitting idle. Humanity's engineers had started working miracles again. They took captured alien tech, hover engines, plasma arrays, shield nodes, and repurposed them with human ingenuity. Within weeks, the Terran fleet began deploying hybrid war machines, metal beasts that roared with alien energy but bore human signatures of brutal efficiency, tanks that crawled up cliffs, drop mechs capable of landing in free fall, railguns firing magnetically accelerated slugs that could pierce a cruiser's hull. The alien engineers called them abominations. Humans called them tools. In orbit, Thalir watched with a kind of awed horror. Once an observer sent by the Council, now he was a defector. He'd seen too much to pretend humanity was just another primitive species. They were chaos and order in one, fire and mercy intertwined. He recorded a message to his home world. "If we fight them again, we won't be fighting to survive. We'll be fighting extinction itself." Then the second front opened. The Coalition invaded the twin moons of Saren and Velka, hoping to flank the Terran positions. It was supposed to be a swift victory. Instead, it became the galaxy's first lesson in Deathworld warfare. The moons were barren, toxic, and lethal, perfect for humans. While the Coalition forces struggled to maintain shield domes against acid storms, human troops moved freely in adaptive suits. They dug trenches in the molten rock, used the storms for cover, and turned the moons into killing fields. When the storms cleared, only silence remained. From orbit, it looked as if the surface had been devoured by fire. The alien command called for retreat. No one answered. Back on Meridian, Rhea received new orders: extraction of captured civilians from behind enemy lines. The aliens had begun taking prisoners, not for negotiation, but for study. Humanity fascinated and terrified them. They wanted to understand what made these fragile bipeds endure what no other life form could. Ria's team infiltrated the holding site, an underground complex filled with stasis chambers and the reek of ozone. When they breached the inner labs, the site froze them all. Humans, men, women, and even children, suspended in containment tubes, their eyes open but lifeless, their bodies covered in sensor wires. "God," whispered Brand. Ria clenched her fists. "Not God," she said coldly. "Just monsters." They freed who they could, destroyed what they couldn't, and left the facility in flames. But what hit harder than the victory was what they learned from the surviving prisoners. The Coalition had been planning something far worse: Project Annihilation, the detonation of quantum singularities in Earth's atmosphere, designed to erase the planet completely. When Ria's report reached Rourke, the general's expression didn't change, but his voice was steel. "They want to end us at the source," he said. "Then it's time we take the fight to them." And so began Operation Hammerfall. For the first time since the war began, the humans went on the offensive beyond their own worlds. Fleets jumped through warp corridors thought too unstable for travel, navigating through supernova remnants and dark nebulae, places no sane species dared go. But humanity didn't fear insanity. They'd been forged in it. Rourke led from the front aboard the Vigilant Dawn, surrounded by a skeleton fleet of warships and salvaged enemy craft now flying Terran colors. Thalir, standing beside him, whispered, "You cannot fight all of them." Rourke's eyes were cold fire. "We don't need to. We just have to make them remember us." The Coalition fleet met them over the gas giant Ythros, a shimmering world of storms and lightning. The battle that followed would later be called the Silence of Ythros. Hundreds of ships clashed, the void alight with streaks of plasma and debris. Human frigates dove through the storm clouds, using the planet's magnetic fields to mask their signatures. When the alien dreadnoughts opened fire, their beams hit empty space. Then the humans struck back, rail cannons slicing through shields, drop pods crashing onto enemy hulls like fiery meteors. They boarded ships mid-battle, fighting hand-to-hand in zero gravity. One alien captain watched his bridge doors rupture, and a single human marine floated in, burned, bloodied, but alive. "You shouldn't have come here," the alien hissed. The marine smiled through cracked teeth. "We live here now." The battle raged for days, until the skies themselves burned red. When it was over, the Ythros system was a graveyard. Half the human fleet was gone. But so was the Coalition armada. And in the silence that followed, the stars seemed dimmer, as if mourning what they'd witnessed. Back on Earth, the transmissions began to arrive. Faint, delayed by the distance. The world listened to Rourke's final broadcast from the Ythros front. His voice was calm, weary, yet unbroken. "We are scattered but not defeated. If you hear this, keep fighting. Humanity doesn't end with one world. It lives in every hand that refuses to surrender." The signal cut off there. But the message carried across systems, through broken relays and forgotten satellites. It became a promise. Weeks later, the Coalition tried to push again, but they met resistance unlike anything they'd seen before. Small human cells, survivors from the scattered fleets, struck back with terrifying precision. They hijacked comms, turned enemy weapons against their owners, and sowed fear in every occupied world. "They're ghosts," the alien soldiers whispered. "They die, and yet they come again." Ria's ghost company was among them. She fought now not for orders, but for memory, for every soldier who never came home. "We lost Rourke," Brand said quietly one night, sitting beside her near the ruins of a fallen enemy cruiser. Ria looked up at the burning stars. "No," she said. "We lost his voice, not his will." And when dawn came, they moved again. Shadows in the smoke, humanity's vengeance and hope intertwined. In the council chambers, panic took hold. Their fleets were crumbling. Worlds that had once mocked humanity were now sending envoys begging for peace. But peace was a hollow word now. The galaxy had unleashed something it could not contain. a species that had evolved to defy extinction itself. Thalir addressed the council one last time. "You wanted to understand them," he said. "You called them Deathworlders. But they are not the end of life. They are what life becomes when it refuses to die." And across the stars, in the silence left by the Battle of Ethros, a new sound began to echo, the steady pulse of human transmissions. Short, relentless, defiant. A single message repeated again and again in every known frequency. "We are still here." The galaxy thought the war was over when the Ethros system went dark. The Council had declared humanity eradicated, their fleets shattered, their homeworld supposedly in ruins. Across the spiral arms, the Coalition broadcast victory messages. Monuments were built, songs composed, parades marched through alien capitals under banners proclaiming the death of the Deathworlders. But in the shadowed corners of those same worlds, whispers persisted. Mining ships vanished along uncharted routes. Patrols reported phantom signals. Entire garrisons went silent overnight. Their bases found days later gutted from within. Doors still sealed, sentries still standing. No signs of life. The official story blamed malfunctions, solar storms, or rogue mercenaries. But the soldiers who knew better spoke in hushed tones. "The humans are back." They weren't wrong. Humanity hadn't died at Ethros. They had learned. The survivors scattered across the stars didn't rebuild in cities or fleets. They rebuilt in silence, on moons stripped bare by war, in asteroid belts where no sane being would venture. They built hidden forges. They stripped enemy wreckage, learned alien languages, rewrote software and biology both. And in that darkness, humanity evolved again. They were no longer just soldiers. They were ghosts of war, wielding the galaxy's own tools against it. Rhea Solis had become one of those ghosts, leading what remained of the Ghost Company. No longer an army, but a legend. Her skin bore scars like circuitry, and her voice carried through encrypted channels across systems. Her new orders were simple: strike, vanish, repeat. The first to feel their return was the world of Harquin, a lush capital that once celebrated humanity's eradication. The city was hosting the annual victory parade when the sky began to fall apart. The defense network went offline in less than a second. Comms jammed. The planetary shield flickered, then failed. At first, the crowd thought it was part of the celebration. A holographic display, perhaps. Then the orbital station above the city exploded in a blossom of silent fire. Moments later, ships appeared. Not fleets, not armadas, but a handful of vessels flying no banner at all. They dropped through the atmosphere without transponders, black hulls reflecting the flames below. When the first pod struck the parade square, it didn't explode. It opened. Human soldiers in ash-gray armor emerged, moving like ghosts through smoke. One of them carried a banner stitched from an old Earth flag. The words painted across it were rough but clear: "We never left." By the time the Coalition fleet responded, Harquin was already burning. But it wasn't conquest the humans sought. It was exposure. Broadcasts hijacked every channel in the system, replaying the atrocities committed during the war. The experiments, the purges, the civilians the Council had abandoned to starve. "You declared us monsters," a voice said across the screens, "and then tried to become worse, to destroy us. We won't let you forget." When the fleet finally landed, they found nothing but wreckage and silence. Humanity had vanished again. The Council's panic spread faster than their control. Member worlds began defecting, terrified that they'd be next. Some sent envoys to Earth, pleading for treaties. But Earth itself had gone quiet, shrouded behind a wall of electromagnetic storms and signal distortion. No one could reach it. The assumption was that the planet had been rendered uninhabitable. Yet in orbit of that quiet blue world, deep within cloaked stations, humanity had been reborn. The survivors of Ethros had brought back more than vengeance. They had brought alien knowledge, technology once thought divine. They fused it with human willpower and built something new: ships that could travel without warp gates, armor that adapted to energy signatures, artificial intelligences born from the minds of fallen soldiers. They didn't call it the Terran Federation anymore. They called it the Continuum. General Rourke's last message had become its creed. Humanity doesn't end with one world. And under that creed, Rhea's ghost company became the Continuum's spear point. They struck coalition shipyards, dismantled slave worlds, and liberated colonies that had once betrayed them. Each victory was surgical, methodical. They never occupied, never ruled. They came, they broke chains, and they vanished. They fight like memories, one alien commander reported before his command ship disappeared into static. You can't kill what already lives in every shadow. Thalir, the crystalline defector who had once stood beside Rourke, now lived among the humans in exile. He had seen what the Council's fear had done, and he knew that the war's end was coming. Not through peace, but through revelation. Sitting in a hidden base carved beneath the ice of Europa, he watched the holographic display of coalition movements. "They're preparing another purge," he said softly to Rhea. "They've built a weapon, a singularity core capable of tearing systems apart." Rhea didn't flinch. "Then we stop it." Thalir's voice darkened. "There are thousands of ships guarding it." She turned away, tightening the straps on her armor. "Then we bring hell." Operation Black Star was humanity's final gamble. The Continuum's entire strength, every hidden ship, every scavenged fleet, every silent ally, converged on a single point. The ardent expanse, where the Coalition's doomsday weapon drifted like a wounded sun. They attacked under the cover of the Expanse's storm belt, lightning storms stretching for light years, tearing sensors apart. As the Coalition fleet scrambled, they were already too late. The humans were inside their defenses before the first alarm sounded. From the bridge of her ship, the Ashwing, Rhea watched the battle unfold. A dance of light and death against the roaring void. "Target their reactors," she ordered. "Chain reactions only. Leave the hulls intact." Her second-in-command frowned. "You want them alive?" "I want them to watch," she said. "I want them to remember what they made us become." The first salvo struck true. The Coalition's forward carriers erupted in silent brilliance, plasma spearing out in webs of molten light. But the counterattack was brutal. Alien warships unleashed gravity wells and antimatter volleys that tore through space itself. The Ashwing shook under the impact, alarms screaming. "Shields at 40%, someone shouted. "Doesn't matter," Rhea said. "Keep pushing." In the heart of the battlefield, human drop pods pierced through flames, cutting toward the Singularity weapon's central ring. Among them, Brand led the ground team, half his body replaced with cybernetic grafts after Meridian. "You ready for this, boss?" he said through comms. "Born ready," Rhea replied. They breached the core's outer defenses and descended into a maze of alien architecture, smooth obsidian tunnels humming with power. The air was heavy, charged with gravity distortion. At the center of it all was the weapon's engine, a massive sphere of collapsing energy, barely contained. "Plant the charges," Rhea commanded, "and make it quick." They were halfway through when the alien defense forces arrived. The firefight that followed was chaos made flesh. Plasma bolts turned the tunnels into suns, and the sound of human rifles echoed like thunder. Rhea moved like a ghost through the smoke, her blade cutting through armor, her team fighting with a desperation that felt almost holy. "We can't hold," Brand yelled. "Then don't," she said, slamming the final charge into place. The sphere pulsed, the containment field shattering. "Everyone out!" she shouted. The last thing she saw before the blast was Brand grinning through his cracked visor, nodding once. The explosion consumed the core in silence. The shockwave rippled outward, tearing apart half the Coalition fleet. Ships blinked out of existence as the Singularity collapsed, folding in on itself. The storm belt lit up like dawn, and for a moment, the stars truly did fall silent. When the light faded, what remained of the Continuum limped through the wreckage. The Coalition was broken, its fleet scattered, its weapon gone. The war was over, not by treaty, not by surrender, but by exhaustion. Humanity had done what it always did. It had survived. Rhea's ship drifted among the debris, its hull cracked, its systems failing. She stared out the viewport at the swirling remnants of the collapsed weapon. "It's done," she whispered. Thalir stood beside her, his crystalline form flickering from damage. No, he said quietly. It's beginning. In the months that followed, transmissions spread across the galaxy. Shortwave bursts from unknown origins, repeating a single phrase in countless languages. The stars are ours again. The council dissolved. Worlds once enslaved rebuilt themselves, guided by the lessons humanity had left behind. There were no Terran ambassadors, no armies, no occupation forces, just the quiet presence of something new. The idea that strength could coexist with mercy, that resilience was not savagery. Rhea Solis vanished after the war's end. Some claimed she died in the collapse. Others swore they saw her ship, the Ashwing, passing beyond known space, its engines burning faint blue trails into the dark. Thalir returned to his home world, carrying humanity's final message to the surviving council members. Standing before their broken chamber, he said, "You feared their world because it was dangerous. You feared their hearts because they were unbreakable. And now, because you feared them, you have inherited their silence." And far beyond the rim of the galaxy, on a nameless rock orbiting a dying sun, a small fire burned in the dark. Around it sat the last of the Ghost Company, their armor faded, their faces human still. They looked up at the endless sky filled with the faint glow of distant stars. One of them, young, scarred, hopeful, asked, "Do you think they'll remember us?" Rhea smiled faintly, her gaze distant. "They don't need to," she said. "They'll feel us. Every time they survive, every time they stand back up. That's humanity's echo." The wind carried her words into the cold void, where they mingled with the hum of the universe itself. And though the stars remained silent, somewhere, deep in the dark between them, the heartbeat of humanity went on, steady, eternal, and unbroken.